IFBB for Akeem Williams. What species are you?
This is IFBB Pro, Sarah LeBlanc, and living a healthy lifestyle is super important to me. Are you getting all your vitamins and minerals? If not, you better get demineralized.
Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios in Westbury, New York for another episode of Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by, as always, by Species Nutrition. Go to speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us on rxmuscle.com. 30-minute question and answer. Anything you want to ask about training, supplements, diet, anything that's on your mind. We've had questions about IFBB competitors and competitions. And in the past few episodes, we have questions about life, the meaning of life, dating, what kind of music Dave listens to. Anything and everything is on the table. You can reach us via the Muscle Central Forum on rxmuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to register. Our official Facebook page, Twitter page, or rather tweet at us using hashtag AskDave, or our official Instagram page at official_RX Muscle. And with that, we bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, a hectic but successful week for you in Germany with FIBO 2015.
Yeah, I got to go back to Cologne, Germany, and it was exciting because I got to see people that I hadn't seen in a while, at least the European bodybuilders, that is. I was upset that my friend Roman Fritz didn't make it down there. He, after all, is in Germany, but he's saving his money for contest prep, and I can respect that. But I did get to meet a lot of old friends and met a lot of new friends, which was great. You know, I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, "I hate the show."
That's great.
I hate the show. And you know what? Every time someone told me that, I knew that they watched the show. One person came up to me who spoke very little English. And he said to me, he goes, "I love the show." And I knew he just didn't get the humor of what we say when we tell people to tell us we hate the show. But, you know, he was a fan as well. So it was great. I actually I was at the Jay Cutler booth, and a Jay Cutler fan actually had me sign my name on the Jay Cutler t-shirt, which was kind of weird. But so all in all, it was a great weekend.
You got to interview Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, Cedric McMillan, Fuad Abia, Kevin Lavroni. What was that like, getting to see all these top athletes? And of course, the big news with the show being canceled, yet all these athletes were there representing their particular brands. What was that experience like?
Well, you know, it's funny because I predicted this 5 years ago. I said all these exclusive magazine contracts are going to be gone because there's no magazines anymore. No one's advertising in there. There's no money for these magazine owners to be paying these huge astronomical salaries. And when Jay Cutler doesn't have a magazine contract, you know that the magazine contracts are in trouble. So pretty much almost everyone is available for me to talk to now. I actually had to pick and choose who I wanted to go to. It was so great. So it was nice that I can go talk to, you know, and I know all these guys for years and years and years. I competed with them and, you know, helped a lot of them. So it's nice to be able to talk to Kevin Lavroni and be able to talk to Jay Cutler. I didn't get to interview Dorian Yates though. I every time I went by his booth, he wasn't there. And then I was also, you know, I was where I wanted to ask him. I didn't know if I should ask him about the Holocaust denial thing and everything like that. So he was the only one I kind of missed, but I got everyone else. I got Dennis James and Cedric McMillan and Max Charles and Fuad Abiad and my good friend Volantis Dokos. I mean, I was everywhere. I interviewed everyone. Bruce from Quest Bars. We got so much coverage that you'll be seeing it for weeks. Matter of fact, I did some other in-depth interviews with a lot of the guys that we'll be putting up at a later date. So tons of content still coming.
So for all these interviews and, of course, the challenge put out by Ronnie Coleman to Jay Cutler for the Olympia 2016, it is all available on rxmuscle.com. And that is where we're going to start. We're going to start in the Muscle Central Forum on rxmuscle.com. Dave, the first question from Mr. Dedication. What exercises would you recommend for ligament strengthening?
You know, that's a very controversial topic because you really can't strengthen ligaments. The way you strengthen ligaments is really strengthen bone because the ligaments connect the muscles to the bone. If your bones are strong, then the ligaments should be anchored in there real well. Now, what's a good way to strengthen bones? Well, that means the best way to strengthen bones is to number one, weight train, because the bigger the lean muscle on your body, the more exertion it exerts on the bone, the more the bone wants to build density. So weight training is the best way to strengthen bone, muscle, and ligaments and tendons. Now, why do some bodybuilders pop ligaments or tendons? Usually tendons, from the pec muscle or the bicep muscle. Those are the two most common. And that's usually because the muscles get so strong that they sometimes get stronger than the anchors that are there. And that's, that has a lot to do with, just people who have tremendous strength in the gym. I always felt that I was never a very strong bodybuilder personally, and I think that helped me not to tear muscles in the gym because I wasn't having to lift, crazy weights.
Let's stick with the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com. This question from Mr. Immensity. Greetings, Dave. It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to participate. Let's get to it. Back in your gargantuan days, I like how he phrased that, were you ever involved in any physical altercations? And if so, was your size a help or a hindrance?
Ironically enough, I had 2 confrontations when I was at my biggest. And I remember them distinctly. One came from a drunken person, because I used to live on the water and right across the street from a bar. It was like an old, it's been there for 100 years. And this guy came out drunk and he was cursing at, I don't know if he was cursing at me or my wife at the time. And I started, and I was like 300 pounds, and I went in his face and I pointed, I said, "Who the hell do you think you are talking to me like that?" And he was I could tell he was ridiculously drunk. And, guys like that, when they usually see a big guy, what they do is they try to antagonize you. I said, "Look, if you want to do something," I said, "why don't you put a finger on me, and then I'll kick your ass," because they invariably what they do is they'll call the cops on you. So he never started with me. That was the end of it. I basically insulted him verbally, excessively, telling his wife that I feel sorry that you have to be with this guy. And he was screaming like a maniac. That was the first time, so that never went anywhere. The second time, I just got an umbilical hernia surgery. I left the doctors or the hospital. And on the way back, I wanted my girlfriend at the time to take me to eat, at McDonald's, believe it or not. And in the McDonald's parking lot, I got into some guy. I was laying down in the car, and someone was screaming at my girlfriend something, and I got out like a lunatic, and I couldn't do anything because I had I had the stitches in my stomach and everything like that, and I poked him in the chest at 300 pounds. And I almost broke his sternum, I think. And he was ready to call the cops. And I said, "Well, you got to call the cops because I poked you in the chest." And that was the end of that. I beat him up with one finger. That was my one fight my whole life. I won with one finger.
Let's check in with the live stream audience on the live chat box. This question from Mark Feldman. Dave, who is the one It's a good question. Who's the one bodybuilder that you think never lived up to their potential?
Oh, there's so many. Matt Mendenhall should have been a pro, never was. Not sure why not. Never was able to bring it when he needed to. Flex Wheeler should have been Mr. Olympia several times, probably, because he never really gave 100% when he needed to. Would leave the door open a little bit. I think he never lived up but he accomplished a lot, so you really can't say he didn't live up to his potential. Kevin Levrone could have been Mr. Olympia. So when I think of people falling short, maybe I think of guys that never really went anywhere, like Chris Cook turned pro, and then just kind of dropped off the map. Those guys are sad. Obviously, Don Long with the kidneys and Tom Prince with the kidney problems, never really got to truly, figure out or find out how well they could have done. So those are guys as well. But, the list goes on and on.
You're watching Ask Dave on rxmuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. We check in with our Instagram crowd. Again, our handle is @official_RxMuscle. With that, we go to Alpha JR. Dave, what is the best time to use Painless pumps? Many say pre-workout, others say post-workout.
Painless pumps is a site injection type oil, the guys use to enhance their muscles. When you do it, it really doesn't matter. You could do it in the morning. You can do it before bed. I don't know if I would do it right before training because it's probably leave you pretty sore. You know what I mean? It's probably not the best time. But I know guys that do it that time. There's really no wrong or right time to do it. It's just whenever you have the time pretty much. Or, you'll fall into your own schedule. Everyone has their own routine of doing it. And whatever's comfortable is the right answer.
This next question from a good friend, Arman Adibi. Dave, I'm in the ER again, so that's not good, with food poisoning from, and he says food company. How is it that some get sick easier than others with bad food? Second time in a month, getting 5 bags, fluid plus anti-nausea meds and painkillers. Also, marijuana use is pretty common in bodybuilders to chill or relax. What's your option if it's side effects other than the obvious? I didn't get that part of it. I don't know if you meant to say what's your opinion.
Well, marijuana is not good for bodybuilders because it raises estrogen levels very high. It causes testosterone to aromatize more or convert to estrogen. So for a bodybuilder, it's not probably the best drug to do, although I know a lot of bodybuilders that do it. But I also know that these bodybuilders that do it always have trouble getting hard. So, once again, if you're going to be a bodybuilder, use bodybuilding supplements and drugs. Don't use recreational drugs if you can avoid it, because they don't really mesh very well. I know guys that are on tons of like stims and stuff like that. I know guys that use cocaine. I'm like, what are you doing that for? It's the worst bodybuilding drug of all time. Now, to get back to Arman's question, it's funny because he texted me that he was going to ask a question on the show. I didn't even know he was in the ER. Sorry about that. Hopefully feeling good. But some guys, are just, their stomachs are more sensitive. Sometimes, you got to remember, in our colon, we have a lot of probiotic or good bacteria that live there. And those bacteria usually will eat up any kind of bacteria that's foreign or that could cause problems. Some people have a weakened immune system or weakened probiotic, environment or good bacteria environment in their colon, and that's why they're a little bit more open to food poisoning. Now, a lot of people say they get food poisoning, and it's not food poisoning. A lot of times, it's just a viral infection that they're getting. There are very few cases of true food poisoning. Because you got to remember, the stomach has got tremendous acids in it. When you swallow food, the acidic environment of the stomach usually kills off bacteria, or at least most of them, pathogenic bacteria. If it gets through there, that means there's a big, heavy load of bacteria in there, and you'd really have to eat some seriously contaminated food to get sick.
I'm sorry, I have to hand it to this. So on our Twitter feed, Robert Salazar at Robert Salazar3. I don't have a question. I just hate your show. Good job out of you, Robert Salazar. Let's go back to the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com and check in with Vic B. Hi, Dave. Species Isolized now has NitroSpec protein infusion technology. What are the benefits of this over regular whey protein isolate that does not have the added whey fractions?
Yeah, well, you know what I did? I had this great whey isolate, Isolized, and when we repackaged and rebranded, I said, you know what? I want to make it a little better. And there's really not much you can do. But there is, the fact that, small protein fractions like di and tripeptides, whey, what we call whey hydrosylates, tend to be preferentially taken up by the gut, or the intestinal cells, into the bloodstream much quicker, by the way, than just single amino acids are. Just knowing that fact, they said, you know what? If we can use a filtration technology that will create a few of these fractionations, or even add them back into the whey isolate mix, it would kind of not only infuse the protein with a higher or better absorbable, formulation. It'll actually, give us something that I can use as a, I guess you could say, a modicum of saying this is better than it was before. Now, here's the trick. You can't add too much hydrosylate to your whey isolate or it tastes terrible. It has a gasoline-like taste. So what you do is you add just enough to get an effect, but not too much where you're going to alter the taste. So using this my manufacturer uses this new filtration technology where we can get these fractionations in there, and that's pretty much what it is. It sounds way more complicated than it is, but the bottom line is you're still getting a very purified whey protein isolate.
You're watching Ask Dave on rxmuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. We go back to the rxmuscle.com Muscle Central Forum. This question from NBAR Yosef. Dave, for his two-part question, 1, can you count fiber against carbs on a ketogenic diet? 2, how do you know if you're in ketosis?
Well, if you're taking in fiber, that doesn't count as carbohydrates in the diet because they're unabsorbable carbohydrates. If you're not absorbing them, then you don't count them. That's why they're not considered net carbs. As far as, what was the other part of it?
How do you know if you're in ketosis?
Ketosis. Most people could tell when they're in ketosis because they get that brain fog goes away and they feel very clear-headed. When you're just barely or not quite in ketosis, you're going to get like lows and highs, blood sugar-wise. You might feel a little like goofy. That means you're not quite in ketosis. When you get into ketosis, all of a sudden everything clears up because now the brain is using exclusively ketones or fats for fuel. A lot of people try to use these keto sticks. They pee on them and they're not that accurate. So I know people that are in serious ketosis that they come up very, very low ketosis on the keto strip. So it's kind of, if you're on virtually no carbs for at least 3 or 4 days, you're in ketosis. Trust me.
Dave, we go back to the Instagram handle, Instagram page again. Our Instagram handle is official_RX I wanted to bring up, here we go. This one from Gabricio500. Hey, Sid and Dave, this show is god awful. My question is this: how come so many bodybuilders have a big gap in the middle of their abs, as if they were pushing away from each other? Is this just genetic, or is it heavy lifting, and perhaps hernia related? Ronnie Coleman, for example. By the way, nice coverage in Germany last weekend. Lots of cool interviews.
Well, the line that runs down the middle of the rectus abdominis muscles, which is what we know as the 6 or 8 pack, that's called the linea alba. It's a line of connective tissue. Now, in some people, genetically, it's wider. The band is wider, and some people it's very narrow. So that accounts for whether people have a little bit of a width, or their rectus muscles have a little bit of a curve, or if they're completely straight and lined up. That's completely genetic. Now, as guys get very big or gain a lot of weight, just like as a woman who might get pregnant, sometimes this linea alba can pull apart a little bit. When that happens, usually, and this has nothing to like Lee Haney always had that little opening there, that little width between his abs. That was just genetic. Ronnie Coleman had that too. Now, when he got bigger, Ronnie, it got a little bit wider apart because I think it was stretched out. When that stretches out, that usually can account for guys' stomachs hanging out a little bit because it gets loose almost. Just like a pregnant woman, after a pregnancy, she has a little bit of that looseness there. Now, you can physically pull it in with your abdominal muscles, but when you're standing relaxed there, sometimes it does balloon out a little bit. And once again, that just comes because people are getting so big, they're eating so much food that it's stretching out that band of tissue.
Let's go back to the livestream.com live chat box. This question from Bobby Brown. Dave, hate the show on the level that me and you both love fish. LOL. My question is, what is the best way to break up scar tissue from, let's just say, playing darts?
From playing darts?
And he has a smiley face.
Oh, I got you. From taking injections. Massage is usually the best way. The best way to prevent scar tissue is not to let it occur. So if you're getting a lot of stuff binding up where you're injecting, you want to start breaking that up and massaging it right away. Once it starts getting really setting in stone, so to speak, as I like to say, when the connective tissue starts growing in there, it's way harder to get rid of it. And if you wait too long, a lot of times it requires surgery to get rid of it. A good massage therapist should be able to break that up on a regular basis, and you'll never really have to worry about getting scar tissue. Look at Tony Freeman. No one gets more massages than Tony Freeman, and the guy doesn't have any scar tissue anywhere in his body. So that's just a great advocacy for getting massages every week.
We stay with the live chat box on livestream.com. This question from UT. What is more prone to making a body turn flat? Is it sugar like from cookies? If you have veins, then the next day they're not there?
Well, usually carbs will make a body pop up a little bit, but veins are very genetic. I always have veins. I mean, usually if I eat a salty meal or I eat something sugary, my veins come out more. However, if you tend to have a lot of body fat and you're trying to see veins, holding fluid will prevent that, will cover them up a little bit. Obviously, having too much body fat will cover them up. I know people who never have veins until maybe the day of the show. And then there's guys like me that, my veins are so pronounced that you can see them through, a pair of spandex, pants. So once again, very genetic. If you have very little veins and you tend to hold body fat, though, carbs are certainly not going to help bring it out.
Let's go back to the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to register. Again, we have very creative opens. Now, many of you come at us with, I hate the show. Dave was telling me that in Germany, many came up to him saying, I just hate the show. Great. Rhino15, Dave, every time I listen to your show, all I hear is Charlie Brown's teacher's voice. You remember what that was like, right? Wah, wah, wah. What do you recommend for supplements to take while on cycles such as NEC, COQ10, curcumin, etc.? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the supplements he mentioned are great, but they're kind of esoteric. You know, if you're on a cycle, if you're not on a cycle, every single person out there should be taking a high quality multivitamin, multi-mineral with a fruit extract in the multivitamin, multi-mineral. There's not many out there that are high potency enough that I would recommend. Personally, I make a brand called, with my Species Nutrition line, called V Mineralize. It is super high potency vitamins, minerals, all chelated minerals. We've talked about this before. Chelated minerals are the most absorbable, plus a healthy dose of blueberry extract, which is a dark berry, which is very high in polyphenolics and antioxidants. That should be taken as a standard every single day. Everyone needs it, not just bodybuilders. Everyone should take that every single day. That should be your number one. The second product that you should buy from the store would be an essential fatty acid supplement containing omega-3 and omega-6 fats coming from fish oil and evening primrose oil. And you should be taking a healthy dose of that, 3,000 milligrams of fish oil, 2,600 milligrams of evening primrose oil. I have a product called Omega-Lyse. It has them both in there in the right ratio. Everything I produce is a month's supply. So you're getting a nice healthy dose in a month's supply. Those two should be on everyone's shelf. I don't care who you are. You know, you can hear all the cockamamie stories from all the other supplement companies that you can drink this stuff and get this from here, and this little shot is equivalent to 25 times. Look, this is what you need. I've researched it. I've been using it. I've been living it my whole life. These two products should be in every person's medicine chest or kitchen counter, whatever you want to say. Now, when you start talking about what other supplements, then it becomes, you know, okay, let's look at what we need. If you have heart issues, maybe you're getting a little older, CoQ10 is a great supplement to add in. Absolutely. Because it's shown as we get older, we decrease the amounts in cardiac muscle tissue. If you're looking to detox your liver, you might want to use some milk thistle. Or even some of the kidney stuff that I sell at DavePalumbo.com. So it depends on what situation you're in, but the bare basics of what you need every single day should be an essential fatty acid supplement and a multivitamin.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. You can visit speciesnutrition.com. On that note, we wish a happy birthday to Species athlete Timothy Norsworthy, who held it down for us with the Species table at the Panhandle Showdown this past weekend in Pensacola, Florida. We had our very own Akeem Williams guest posing at this show, and this next question actually has a mention of the BK Beast from Dasheens on our Instagram page. Dave, I hate this show so much that I would rather get put in a headlock by Akeem Williams, a.k.a. the BK Beast. How would you go about getting as strong as possible on squats and deadlifts, reps, sets, extra exercises, etc.?
The first thing you have to do if you want to increase strength is perfect your form. And this is a very hard thing for people to do because I watch guys in the gym all the time. I'm a people watcher. And I see the most horrible forms. And you know what? I'm at a stage now where I'm considered an old guy, so I can go and I can give anyone advice. No one's going to feel threatened by me because I'm not competing. And matter of fact, most people welcome it because I think a lot of people are afraid to ask me questions. I go to like my gym around the corner, and I'll ask some kid to squat to work in with him, and he'll be like petrified because he sees me, and I'm not as big as I used to be, but still I guess he's intimidated. And then I start giving form advice because I explain to these guys, look, if you want your squat to get better or you want your bench press to get better, you got to learn how to do the exercise properly. Once you learn to execute the exercise properly, the strength will come. And a lot of times people can't generate strength, or they might have generated strength, but they're not getting the size increases they want. And it's all because they're not using the right form. So if you have a weak body part, step back, find someone that you trust, learn how to do that exercise, or just lighten the weight way down and work on form. Once you build form, the weight will come back. But that's the biggest mistake I see people doing.
Let's go back to the livestream.com live chat box's question from Trent56. Dave, this show is bad. It's good. Do you recommend doing calves every other day to gain size? Should high reps work as to get insane pumps?
I always had weak calves. And matter of fact, when I was first competing, a lot of guys said, oh, he's got great legs, he's got no calves. The old Lonnie Teeper line. And it drove me insane. And I've tried a million different things. And one day I was at Gold's Gym Venice, and there was a guy there, and he showed me what I was doing wrong. He wasn't a bodybuilder by any means, but he trained some bodybuilders. And he showed me that I was, so worried about getting the reps done and the weight that I wasn't really contracting my calf up onto my big toe. And I started doing sets with light weight, and I said, holy mackerel, my calves feel great. I get a great pump. But what I realized was that when I would get to the heavier sets after doing a couple sets prior, my feet, the bottom of my feet were so fatigued that I wasn't feeling my calf contract anymore. So I said to myself, I wonder if I only did like 1 or 2 sets, but heavier weight, not really warming up with a million different sets, if my calves would grow better. So what I discovered after a lot of trial and error, to cut to the chase, is that if I do 1 set of seated calves for 15 reps, the heaviest weight I can do with good form, and then I do 1 set of standing calves with the heaviest weight I can do for 15 reps, and I do that twice a week, my calves grew perfectly. And now I get compliments. People say, oh, you got great calves. I'm like, because I always had to deal with people putting them down my whole career. So that's my secret. And I told a few people about it, and I've got a couple guys trying it, and they say it worked like a charm. So 15 high intensity, all out, up and down, squeeze those calves reps, but don't do any warm-ups. Just 2 sets. That's it, twice a week.
We go back to the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com. Check in with Vic B. Dave, do you recommend cycling clenbuterol 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, etc. are common protocols, or do you recommend staying on clenbuterol for longer without the need to cycle, and if so, why?
Bill Phillips was the original guy who told the world about clenbuterol, really, and said to use it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Now, the first 2 weeks you use clenbuterol, it does work way better. But it doesn't stop working. It does slow down a little bit. But the problem is if you go off it for 2 weeks, a lot of times you lose the fat loss you got from when you're on it. So there's a definite stepping back when you go off of it. So that's why when people go off it for 2 weeks and then come back on it, they think they're getting results again, but they're really just getting back to where they left off. So I recommend people stay on it consistently for 16 weeks or 12 or 16, however long you need it. Just stay on it every single day. It will slow down a little bit on how it works, but it will still keep working, and that's what's important.
Time for a couple of more questions. We go back to the live chat box on livestream.com. Check back in with Bobby Brown. Dave, what are your views on DNP, and are pro using it, and what is a safe way to use it with great results?
I am not a DNP fan. Look, I'm hardcore to the max. I will tell people how to use things. I'm pretty honest. DNP is a dangerous drug, and I'm going to tell you why. I know a lot of people say, it's not dangerous, not toxic. The problem is that when you dose the stuff, what it does basically is it makes your cells leak fuel, okay? Leak ATP, and they leak it as heat. That's why people are always sweating when they're on the stuff. But it does it so completely. Now, the whole idea of what we call uncoupling, or uncoupling oxidative phosphorylation, which is the creation of ATP, is a great concept in fat burning, and I'm a big believer in it. But DNP does it too completely, okay? Too much so that it really is a poison in the body. So you're basically poisoning your body into burning fat, to such a fast degree. Now you got to remember, when you're oxidizing that much fat that quickly, you're producing enormous amounts of free radicals. The free radical load is huge, which causes damage to a lot of tissues, the liver specifically, okay, the kidneys. You don't want a humongous load of free radicals coursing through your body on a regular basis because you're on this DNP. Likewise, you're going to get so weak and low in energy because it's wasting so much fuel in your body that you're going to have a lot of trouble training on the stuff. So I will not recommend a dosage because I don't think there is a safe dosage you can use, and I don't think it's a drug that should be in anyone's arsenal.
You're watching AskDaveRxMuscle.com. Time for one more question. We go back to the Instagram page. Again, our handle is at @official_RxMuscle. This question, and I wanted to save this till the end because, again, it is an opinion question for Dave from Mr. C. Shadows. Dave, I hate this show so much that I think Steve Bleckman should cut you back. That is a good one, my friend. Dave, what IFBB pro out there right now that you've never worked with, never coached, or have in the past would you like to work with and or coach, and why?
Well, I mean, the answer is obvious. The dream guy to work with would be Big Ramy because, I mean, the guy has got enormous unlimited potential. And, you want to just see what you can do with that. It's like almost like a science project. You want to say, how great can I make this guy? And I know Chris Aceto felt that way when he started working with him. And it's a shame that, whatever happened politically or whatever happened, behind closed doors, closed that down. And now Rami's not with him. But that would be my guy I would want to work with. I would want to see what I can do with a guy like Big Rami, who I think has unlimited potential in the sport.
That is going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave. A reminder, this weekend is going to be Kenny Wallach's posing seminar in Puerto Rico. RX Muscle is going to have coverage. Johnny Styles, our producer, who did an excellent job today, is going to be flying down to Puerto Rico. That's actually why we did the show today. And he's going to be doing wall-to-wall coverage with all the athletes with Kenny Wallach. So if you're an athlete, you're looking to compete, and you're looking to fine-tune your posing techniques, this is what you're going to want to watch. And it's going to be on rxmuscle.com. Till next week, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good one.